Is your pastor constantly telling you what to do and giving you input into the way that your worship sounds? Well, we're going to talk about that on today's Worship Leader Wednesday. So this video is actually in response to a comment that was left on last week's Worship Leader Wednesday video, which was about taking your sound person out to lunch and buying it for them and developing a great relationship with them if you're the worship leader.
That's right.
And so this was a comment. There's actually two comments that we're going to sort of address and respond to. First comment comes from Roy Rodriguez. Thank you, Roy. How about when pastors want to put their input into the sound? Okay, and so there was a little bit of discussion on that comment. And
so like the pastor comes and says, hey, turn up the vocalist, or the guitars are too loud, or something. Typically it's too loud, or it's not loud enough.
Yeah, but the pastor puts their input into the sound. And then Troy Narwald.
Troy.
Let me know if I said your name right.
Troy N.
Troy says this, and I gather from Troy's comment that he is the person running sound. But a better question is how often and when should they, the senior pastor, give their input to the sound guy? Is it in the middle of a song during the service? Is that a proper time? Or discuss the problem after the service, and how much is too much? And Troy then goes on to talk about how when he mixes sound, that is his offering of worship to God, which is actually true. That's what in whatever capacity we serve in our church, that is our offering. So Troy, that was a really cool way to frame that question. But let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the Bible says that we're all part of the body. We each serve different functions, and that's how we accomplish Sunday. Some of us are artists, some of us are children's ministry workers. So we all have these things that we do that we're passionate about. Yep. Musicians and artists are super passionate about what they do. They're putting a lot of time into this, and they're prepping and getting ready. And so what happens is we can sometimes lose focus on why we're there to do what we're there to do, And so for worship leaders, we can get to the point where really the most important thing is the song, or the most important thing is how this goes. And the reality is, it's really just a small piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, guess what? The most important thing is not to get as much low end as possible. Like, if you're mixing professionally in a studio and you're mixing an album, you want it to be perfect, right? But the reality on a Sunday, that might not be the most important thing.
Right.
And so what we often have is we get frustrated with the senior pastor or the lead pastor because here's the thing. Here's the thing we got to remember is the lead pastor or your senior pastor, I can guarantee you with probably 99% accuracy, cares about worship more than you do, or as much at least. Cares about children's ministry more, because here's the thing. It's their church.
Yeah.
They're the leader. Here's something that I realized a long time ago. I love my pastor.
Yeah.
I love what I do, and I work hard, and I put a lot of energy and effort to it. I will never sacrifice as much as he has.
Right.
I will never risk as much as he has risks. There's nothing that I can do that will match what he has put into this church, because this has been his baby, right?
Yeah.
And so they have every right and every authority to speak into whatever they feel like. I have a saying at New Hope is, as a worship arts pastor, if I want a certain sound, if I want it louder, if I want it softer, and I tell you to do it, then, that's what you do. I said, but if Pastor Benji comes by and says, that's too loud, you turn it down. Because he's the one, ultimately, it's his church, right? Under the authority of Jesus. And so I think so what we're really talking about here is not can he, or it's really about how to navigate the intricacies of that. Because the reality is this, when you're mixing a song, and we've had this happen where you'll be at front of house and some nice, sweet lady comes up to you in the middle of the song and goes, I can't hear the vocalist.
Or it's too loud.
Yeah, or it's too loud. And so, there's a time and a place to be constructive. But I would venture this from the comment that there's some frustration here.
Yeah.
And the frustration is, you got the sound person, Troy, who's trying to do his best job that he can. And then you got the pastor that obviously doesn't hear what he thinks he should hear. So what probably hasn't happened and needs to happen is a simple conversation. Yeah. Like if I was
not in the middle of a song.
Yeah, you don't want to not in the middle of the song that is a bad time to do it for anybody.
And that's what he asked.
Yeah.
Is right in the middle of the song a good time?
Of course that's not a good time, but what that says to me is there's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Because our pastor doesn't come to us in the middle of a song and tell us what to do. But we'll meet after service, or we'll make adjustments, or we'll talk through the week. You got to be very intentional about resolving these problems, because the reality is you both want the same thing. I guarantee you that the sound guy wants it to sound amazing, and the pastor wants it to sound amazing.
Yep.
The problem is you're not sure on the vision of what does sound amazing.
Right.
So you guys got to get together and figure that out. And I think one of the suggestions I would make is hire a third party professional, because that's what we've done in the past, where when we feel like, man, we just can't get this room sounding right, let's pay someone to come in and consult with us, and we'll all sit in a room, we'll sit down, we'll listen to mixes, and we'll go, I don't feel like this, or I feel like this, and we'll all talk about it and we'll discuss, and then at the end of that process, you leave with clarity. You know, here's the thing, your pastor may just really want to hear vocals super loud. Maybe that's what he wants, and that's his vision. You got to do that. Yeah. So you got to figure out a way to have these conversations where you can kind of compromise and say, hey, what if I do this and this and this? And you come up with this thing that works for everyone. Yeah. And then he'll stop bothering you. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, he wants it to be great, just like you. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we have to submit. Right? And if I'm the worship leader, man, if pastor wants to do a song that I hate, guess what? I'm doing the song. Doing it. Yeah, you know, and so, yeah. And now I might, if he makes me do 10 songs that I hate, I'll probably, hey, let's go to lunch. Like, why are we doing all these songs? I want to understand all this stuff. But a lot of times you fear what you don't understand. And we just got to come to an understanding of when is the right time to handle these things. And I would venture to say that just a few healthy conversations would open some huge doors.
Yeah. I made a video a while back on the channel. You can search for it on the YouTube channel called Your Most Important Relationship. And it was about a relationship between a worship leader and a senior pastor. And I talked about a lot of the things that Fuller just talked about. It's part of our job as worship leaders or production volunteers, or even paid production staff, is to submit to the vision of the pastor. And that includes the vision that the pastor has for the way worship sounds. Yeah. That relationship is so extremely important, and I believe it's really important for the worship leader and the senior pastor to just really be locked in together as far as the vision that you're both chasing, which should ultimately comes from God, but the senior pastor is typically where that vision is casted and given to the church. The other thing we like to say at our church is there are two appropriate responses when a senior pastor asks for something. The first appropriate response is yes. The second appropriate response is yes, but it's going to be really expensive. That's going to cost a lot of money.
That's right.
And so you can say, but expensive can mean different things, because expensive can mean, okay, if we do this, it's going to put this kind of strain on these volunteers. That cost comes in different ways. Yeah. So we like to say that it's very important for us to acknowledge and chase after the things that our pastor asks us, but also for us to inform our pastor too. Mm-hmm. This is what it's going to cost us, whether it's financially or what it's going to cost us relationally with our people. Sure. So those are important things, but it all has to happen with really good relationship and communication. Those things are so important.
Pastor and I have had countless conversations, usually over sushi, just specifically about sound. Like because in the past we've had struggles with our sound and trying to figure out what works. And we have had tons of conversations of what this should sound like, what we like. What do you like this? Do you like this? Have you thought about this? And it allows pastor to ask questions. Hey, how come I can never hear the vocalist? Or how come the drums are always really loud? And it allows us to have these discussions. So Troy, I would just encourage you to go ahead and set up a time with your pastor, get together with him, and just ask him tough questions like this. What is it about the way that I run sound now that you would like to change? Yeah. What are some things that I could do that would give you better results of what you want what is your vision for worship? And talk about it, and let him ask you questions, and you ask him questions, and then you may come to like a whole new place in your relationship where he'll maybe start trusting you because you've had those conversations. Yeah. And this is 360-degree leadership, where you just come into and you take the situation, you take the bull by the horns, and you run with it, because it's what you do. It's your craft, and you need to run with that. And I would just seek that out, and you'll be amazed at kind of some of the results that you'll probably find.
And if you lead with that's saying, what can I do to help you? Yeah. Hopefully your pastor might say, he might give you some input, or she, and they might say, what can I do to help you? And that might give you an opportunity to say, when
we need a drum cage.
Well, or equipment, but it also might give you an opportunity to say, when people like you, maybe not say it like that, but when there's
people like you,
when input is given, like people complain or whatever, like right in the middle of a song, and I'm really in the moment trying to work, it's really distracting. It makes it hard for me to do my job.
Yeah. That could be your thing.
And you might say, hey, let's set up a barrier.
Yes.
And nobody comes across, nobody comes up to complain during worship about how it sounds. Only certain people are allowed to give input at certain times. You could set these kinds of things up ahead of time.
That's actually a really good one. We did this for a while when we were going through a lot of our sound issues because everybody wanted to give their advice.
Yeah.
And nobody knew what they were talking about.
No.
So we actually, Pastor and I and a few other people, we picked, these 4 people are allowed to speak into the sound.
Right.
Everyone else, they're just opinions. You smile and go, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The elderly lady that comes up to you and says everything's too loud, you go, okay, thank you.
And then you're like,
please
not let them come up again.
You do what one of our sound guys, Stevie, does. He has like a fake button on the board to where, how's this? No, okay, cool. It's just like an empty bus send. Yeah. Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, perfect. Yeah. They watch you turn the knob down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a tip. That's a pro tip right there. But yeah, I think that'd be good. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just really about resolving conflict and learning expectations with each other. This is gonna probably change your life. This may be probably the deepest song we've ever written.
Fuller and I wrote a song for all of you, sound guys.
Yeah. And if you listen really closely in the verse, there's some words in there that are really gonna change your life.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Let's do it. Here we go.
2, 3, 4.
Wow. Better than I even thought it was.
Hopefully it wasn't too loud.
Yeah.